You're watching the free version of Silhouette Essentials. For projects and footage, head to BorisFX.com for the premium download.
So the next thing to do is to work on the cuffs of the character. You can see here that I left them how they were. I just painted out the wire. And I want to change them so it doesn't look like she's being lifted up by the actual wire. And so there's a couple different ways to do that. You could make a mat and use that as a holdout. You have to blur the edge and do some feathering. You have to articulate this area here, like just to cut off what you don't want. But that also takes a little bit of time. And so the way I do it, I just sort of paint it by hand, just sort of animate it by hand. So I'm going to go back to the demo and we'll take a look at these frames I've already painted. First of all, I'm going to go to the grade filter and just reset these values. And I'm going to take a look at what frame I'm on. I just want to be on the same frame, but I still want my source match move enabled. If I hit caps lock, actually what I want to be is on the frame that will give me a clean source. So probably the frame before would be my source. We'll go to the frame before. And if I click caps lock, you can see I have some background I can paint through. So let's just pick a frame here. Okay, we'll start at this frame. And so all I'm going to do is just paint through to the background and cut off part of the sleeve. But I'm also going to do this in two parts, and I'll set up my clone presets for that. So my clone preset here is 100%. I want to make sure that source match move is checked. Sometimes when I bring in my presets, they're locked and I have to change them for my specific uses inside my project. So make sure that's where I want it. And again, just make that the frame before. I'm going to unlock this and then I'm going to lock it again. So now if I click away and I go back to it, I can see that my changes have been made. And then I want to clone at 50%. So I'll go through and just make my adjustments here, click source match move, and click the frame before, click the unlock, and then click lock. So if I click the clone tool, 100%, and then 50%, these are the values that I want. So what I'm going to do is just paint across and cut off part of the cuff here. So I make my first stroke with 100%, and then I go to my other clone preset by clicking Alt-2, and then I just paint away a little bit more for a little bit of motion blur. One to go to 100%. Let's go to the next frame, the frame before. I'm just going to cut this off. Then Alt-2, I'm on 50%. And I might actually need a lower opacity. If I feel like I need something a little bit lower on the fly, I can just hold down the Alt-Option-Command key and drag my cursor to the left on the screen, and you can see this value changing here, up and down. Alt-1, back to 100%. Maybe I'll make my brush a little bit bigger, hold down the Control-Command key. And just taking away some of that area where it's lifted. And I just go back and forth to see how it's animating. Alt-2 or 50%. Try to match the quality of the rest of the sleeve. I'm also noticing that there's a little triangle type shape from the cuff over her wrist itself on the interior, but I'm going to address that later when I'm painting over the character itself. let's take a look at the final paint for the cuff. I'm going to go over here to my second section here. So this has the wire removed out of the background and the cuff painted on both sides. And I'll just scrub through a little bit and we'll compare. So this was the original and this is the painted. Original and painted. So I felt like that was an effective and fast way to take care of this issue. A few more frames. So there's one other option I want to show you as a method to paint out the cuffs, and I'll show you that next. So what I'm going to show you here is an alternate way to paint out the cuffs using an alpha channel that you paint. So I want to make sure that I'm in the color tool here. I'm going to enable to paint in the alpha and I'm going to deselect RGB. So I'm just painting in the alpha channel. And I just want to see if I can paint with my overlay on. It's not on. Command Z, I'll click A again. So now when I paint, you can see I'm just making a paint stroke in the alpha channel only. It's a nice soft brush. I could probably go a little softer. Let's just Command Z and get rid of that. So I'm looking to match the quality of this edge. So I'll paint another stroke here. And then when I go to the clone tool to bring in the background, I can click C to go into the clone tool. I can probably disable the overlay for the alpha. And now I want to make sure I'm painting in the RGB. And so I also want to obey the alpha and invert the alpha because I want to paint outside the alpha or outside, where my alpha channel was, and use that as a holdout. But I want to make sure I'm all lined up with my source, and I've already set that up beforehand. So I have my transformed set to the planar track demo, source match move, and a frame that I know I can use for a while. Click caps lock, and I have lots of good BG here. So then I just start painting, but wait, something's not quite working right. It's not sourcing the correct alpha. Command Z, and what you need to do here is make sure that your alpha source is set to the correct input. So it's set to input, but I really want it set to output because output is where is the result of my painting, and I've painted in the alpha. So now when I paint here, you can see that I'm not going into the cuff. So then I go to the next frame, go back to the color tool, make sure I select all these things, just painting in the alpha, and I'll paint another stroke. How about Command Z? I want to make sure I'm in the overlay. And we'll just do a couple frames. So this way is an option if you just kind of want to have a little more consistency or see what you think it's going to look like with your holdout paint strokes before you start painting. And then we'll go back and go to the clone tool, turn off the overlay. We haven't painted this frame yet, and we'll enable RGB, obey alpha, invert, and make sure that the alpha source is set to output. Just double check we're good there. And you could also paint out the wire this way as well. So that's just another option. And just before I go into the character paint or the wire removal over the character, I just want to show you one more thing about clone sources and alphas. This is just a little example here. I'm not going to use this in this finishing this shot, but I just want to show you how this works. So you can have multiple sources for the paint node. And so here are the inputs here with these little pink bars at the top, the inputs. And so if I want to have an additional source, I can just hook it up here. And now you can see I have the output, input, and source 1. And so here's my source 1. It's actually just the same clip, but I've actually made a color correction just so we can see something when I paint using this source. So if I want to use a different source, I make sure that's hooked up. I make sure that my source is selected here. And then when I paint, I'll just unclick that. You can see that I'm just painting away. I'm using this other source as my source. So Command Z. So one thing I want to show you is that if I had an alpha that I wanted to use in this source as well, I can use that as well. So when I'm selected on my paint node here, and if I click alpha and obey alpha, I want to select a different source or another alpha, source 1. I can even select that when I'm in my main source. So if I go back to output, I can also select the alpha source of a different source. So you have a lot of flexibility here. But in this case, if I just go back and if I go to source 1 and I want to use the alpha from source 1, then I'm just painting within that alpha. So there's all sorts of permutations to mix up sources and alphas. Okay, so next we're going to go to the paint for the wire removal over the character.